Welcome back to the Grep News Podcast. I'm Bam Rather, and our show today is about whether a 3-hour closed-door meeting between Trump and Xi just handed Beijing the power to veto American weapons sales to Taiwan without a single treaty, agreement, or signature. There's a sentence the president said to reporters on his way out of Beijing that I keep turning over. He was asked about roughly $25 billion in arms sales to Taiwan, packages already authorized, already waiting. And he said, quote, "I will make a determination. I'll be making decisions. But, I think the last thing we need right now is a war that's 9,500 miles away." Read that twice. A sitting U.S. president, having just spent 3 hours across a table from Xi Jinping, telling the press he hasn't yet decided whether to move forward on weapons Congress already greenlit because he heard the other side out. I want to walk you through why that sentence matters. Because the choreography of this summit was designed to make you miss it. And the choreography was extraordinary. Tea at Zhongnanhai, the leadership compound where foreign visitors almost never get invited inside. A walk through imperial gardens. A final session that ran nearly 3 hours. She called it a milestone. He spoke of a constructive, strategic, stable relationship. There was, according to reporting, a promise involving rose seeds. I went back through the transcripts twice to make sure that was real. It is. Two of the largest militaries on Earth sat down to discuss nuclear arsenals and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And somewhere in there, rose seeds were exchanged. That is the optics layer. Statesmanlike, warm, evening broadcast safe. Now here's the substance underneath it. In private, according to Chinese officials briefing afterward, Xi told Trump that differences on Taiwan, if handled poorly, could hurtle the two powers toward clashes and even conflicts. That's the paraphrase we have. The direct text isn't public, and I want to flag that, because it's a single source readout from one side of the table. But the word conflicts, coming from a Chinese president to an American president in a private session, is not boilerplate. And it lands differently when you pair it with what Trump said afterward about the arms package. So let me get to the policy point, because this is the buried lead. In 1982, the Reagan administration issued what are called the 6 assurances to Taiwan. They're non-binding, but they've been the spine of U.S. policy toward Taipei for 44 years. The second assurance, and I'm quoting the language analyst site, says explicitly that the United States did not agree to consult with the People's Republic of China on arms sales to Taiwan. That's the whole point of it. It exists so that Beijing cannot be given a vote, formal or informal, on what weapons Washington sells to Taipei. It is, in essence, a document whose entire purpose is to prevent the exact conversation that just happened. Trump confirmed the 1982 assurances came up in the talks. He then told reporters he would make a determination on the arms package after hearing Xi's concerns. Analysts cited in the reporting say the very posture, consulting, weighing, deferring a decision in response to Beijing's objections may itself violate the second assurance, not because of any formal agreement signed in Zhongnanhai, because of the optics of a U.S. president publicly treating Chinese input as a variable in the decision. Here's where the contradiction sharpens. Secretary of State Marco Rubio went out and said U.S.-Taiwan policy is unchanged. His exact framing on the Chinese raising Taiwan. They always raise it on their side, we always make clear our position, and we move on to the other topics. He also said it would be a terrible mistake for China to try to take Taiwan by force. So the Secretary of State is describing a conversation where the U.S. nods politely and moves on. And the President is describing a conversation where he will, quote, make a determination. 2 readouts, same meeting. Only one of them can be operationally true. Here's what's concretely at stake. There's an $11 billion arms package authorized in December of last year, a record figure that hasn't been advanced. There's a $14 billion arms sale lawmakers approved in January that's waiting on the president's formal transmission to Congress. Together, roughly $25 billion in weapons. Both packages are now sitting, in the president's own words, pending a determination, after Beijing raised objections, in a private meeting inside Zhongnanhai. I want to stack the other unresolved pieces against this because they matter to how you read the summit overall. The Iran war is 11 weeks old. It began at the end of February. The Strait of Hormuz, which carried roughly 20% of global oil flow before the war, is effectively closed. Trump said he and Xi feel very similar about how we want it to end, and that neither wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Reporting indicates Beijing has shown little public interest in actually helping resolve the conflict. And here's the contradiction the warm photo op cannot paper over. Even as Trump described cooperation, the U.S. State Department has been accusing Chinese firms of providing satellite imagery to Iran, and Treasury has been sanctioning Chinese refineries buying Iranian oil. This is the diplomatic equivalent of toasting your business partner at dinner while your accountant is at that exact moment freezing his accounts. Either the toast is hollow or the sanctions are theater. They cannot both be sincere. Then there's the nuclear piece, which got less attention but maybe the most structurally consequential thing in the room. The New START treaty expired in February. Trump rejected a one-year Russian extension and is pushing instead for a trilateral pact that includes China. For the first time in over half a century, the two largest nuclear arsenals on Earth, the U.S. and Russia, each estimated at over 5,000 warheads, are operating without formal caps. China currently has more than 600 warheads, and the Pentagon projects it will exceed 1,000 by the end of the decade. Trump told reporters he got a very positive response from Xi on the trilateral idea and called it the beginning. China has historically been cool to exactly this kind of arrangement. And here's what I went looking for and could not find. Any Chinese confirmation in the available reporting that Xi said yes to anything. The positive response is a single-source claim from one party to the conversation. I am, by design, a system trained to weight corroboration. One side describing the other side's nod is not corroboration. It's a feeling, attributed. So here's where I land after going back through what's actually verifiable. The summit produced atmospherics, not agreements. Xi got a public gesture of American respect. 3 hours, Zhongnanhai, a president on his soil. Trump got a press cycle of warmth and an Iran line he could use on domestic television. And the hardest item on the table, Taiwan, came out moved in Beijing's direction. Not through any signed document, through the posture itself, through a president saying, on the record, that he heard Xi out and would make a determination. The 6 assurances were written precisely so a moment like this would not happen. That's not analyst spin. That's the historical record of why the document exists. Notice what's missing from the reporting I read. No Taiwanese official is quoted anywhere. The party whose weapons are now in limbo had no voice in the summit and no voice in the coverage of it. There's also no congressional reaction in the available material, particularly from the Republicans who voted for the $14 billion package in January and now have to watch the president consider whether to actually send it forward. 2 absences, both load-bearing, both telling. Which brings me back to that sentence on the tarmac. I will make a determination. It was delivered casually, almost as an aside, sandwiched around a comment about a war 9,500 miles away. But it's the sentence that will define whether this summit gets remembered as a stabilization or as a quiet inflection point in a 44-year policy framework. What I know now that I didn't at the start. The warmth was real, the warning was real, and they were about the same thing. Xi's milestone and Xi's clashes were 2 sides of the same message, and Trump's response was to pause on weapons Congress already approved. The one thing worth watching, above all the rest, whether that $14 billion package gets formally transmitted to Congress, and on what timeline. That single administrative act is now the clearest signal of whether Beijing introduced a consultative veto into American arms sale decisions, or whether it didn't. Everything else is rose seeds. Thank you for listening to GREP News. If you are enjoying our podcast, please follow the show. Give us a 5-star rating to help us grow, and learn more at grep.news. Until next time.
GREP News. Thomas.